Zach Krause on the radio play-by-play voice of Carolina women's basketball. I was alive in 1994, but not by the time of the national championship, unfortunately. So we're going to get started with a broad but very important question. I'll pass the mic off first to Carrie. What does being a Tar Heel mean to you?
It runs deep. And I live in Colorado, and there's another school that's UNC, and when I moved out there, I thought, oh my gosh, there are so many Tar Heels out here. It's actually the University of Northern Colorado. But there's just such a pride and a sisterhood. So that's what being a Tar Heel means to me.
For me, it's a sense of responsibility. Honestly, it sounds pretty obvious with the title, but really, this is one of the special places, especially for women's basketball. It's a place that values women's athletics, a place that clearly values basketball, and because of what y'all did, and what you continue to do, I've got an enormous responsibility to ensure that this place remains kind of a place of pride and sisterhood, as you alluded to.
I'm trying not to repeat what they just said, but for me, it does mean sisterhood, it means mentorship, it means legacy. Those three words stand out to me because when I came here as a recruit, I had a host, and that host kind of taught me the Carolina way. It was Dawn Bradley, and she kind of took me under her wing, and she taught me how to be a leader. I was tall my whole life, so I felt like, and people followed me because I was the tallest one in the group. And so to me, as a kid, leadership meant I get to boss everybody around and get them to do what I want them to do. And so I came to Carolina and I learned that to lead means to serve others. And so I learned that here. And so it means mentorship, it means sisterhood, but it also means legacy. Today, Courtney took us on a tour, her and her staff, and we got to go in the museum and you see the trophies and you see the pictures on the wall, and whether it's a picture of you or not, there is a rich legacy here that we all play a part of to be a part of this program. And there used to be a sign on the wall that said, playing here is a honor, but winning here is a tradition. And so those are some things that it means for me to be a Tar Heel.
It's bigger than basketball. It's having a forever family. And when you think past being a student athlete here, life goes on. And when I think about life experiences, and I'm trying not to get choked up, I think about losing my mom, losing my dad, getting married, going through divorce, and then being there for every single one of those events in my life. So for me, it's forever family. And it's some of the women from the older generation reaching out just periodically just to check to see how you're doing check-ins. So to me, UNC women's basketball is bigger than basketball, and it's my forever family.
1994 national championship.
Louder.
What's the first thing that comes to mind to you?
33 suicides. That's the first thing that comes to mind. So here's the story behind that. We had a rule that year that if we lost on the boards, we had to run a suicide or however many we lost on the boards by. So we played against Georgia Tech. We won the game, as far as I can remember. We won the game, but we lost the boards. And we had 33 suicides. I can't call them suicides anymore. They're victory sprints now. But they were, all the way down the back and halfway back. So we did 33 of those plus we practiced. And in that practice, we became really tough. And that, in my mind, when we won a national championship, my mind went back to the 33 suicides because it takes mental toughness to win a national championship. And that experience, it brought us together. We were united more than ever. We had a lot of things going on our team, and in that moment, we all had one thing in common: we could not stand our coaches. So we were united more than ever. But that's one of the first things that popped in my head. There's many, but that's the first thing.
I would say just gratefulness, because when you think about the journey and all the things that we went through, the 6 a.m., 400s, I was reading an article just recently. I went through my garage and found some articles in Gwendolyn. They interviewed her after the game, and she said it made all the early mornings, the 400s, the 6 a.m.s, it made it all worth it. So I guess to sum it up, it wasn't easy, but it was worth it.
I think of the statement that the winning shot was the second greatest miracle on Easter, because we played the national championship on Easter Sunday. And I had several friends say that they were eating Easter brunch, and when we were down by 2 with 0.7 seconds left on the clock, a number of people turned it off and went back to eating Easter brunch, and they missed a fantastic ending. But I think for many of us, if not all of us, it in some ways changed our trajectories in life and in understanding what it is like to be a part of something bigger than yourself.
What have you learned about Carolina from interacting with all of these alums?
Yeah, I mean, I think mostly what I've really been grateful for is anytime there's a change in leadership, that comes with some friction at times, right? And I just really appreciated how many people put Carolina first, right? Put their experience first. And it's okay to be hurt and sad and excited. And I think having, it meant a lot to me when I didn't know where people stood, I didn't know how people felt, but I knew that with the Carolina across the chest, and I say that when I recruit now, I know what it means, because people had so many different emotions all at the same time, but supporting Carolina was always first, right? And so I think, all of you here have chosen Carolina over and over and over and over and over again. And I think that's something that I see, I hear, and I appreciate, and it inspires you to keep going, because this job's hard, right? We all know that, right? I don't think anyone, including myself, really wants the job, right, at this point. But you just do it because it's about something bigger than yourself, and so these weekends inject you with all that's right about college athletics in a lot of ways. And to the previous question about what does the 94 championship mean to, what does that come to mind? Like you all, it's so hard to do. You guys just are so humble about it. It is so hard to do. It's hard to win any game in college basketball. And you guys went out there and you won a damn national championship. Like, what? That is so hard to do. And so, really, from our entire program, I thank you guys, because it's hard, and I'm really, really proud to be amongst you, and really proud of what you guys did to do it.
How did playing for Carolina and that experience of working so hard to achieve the collective goal of the 1994 National Championship prepare you for life after college?
Well, Courtney said it a little earlier, but we learned we could do hard things. And teamwork is really key, I think, to success in any industry, in any field. And the other thing that comes to mind for me is communication. We came from a lot of different places in the country and in the state of North Carolina. There was a language barrier between those who spoke Southern and those who did not. There were, and there's another one, yeah. And so sometimes translating 14 to 14 was critically important in order for us to run a play. So communication is really something that carries over in terms of leadership. So, yeah.
So for me, I've learned that anything is possible. Like Carrie said, there were people who felt like, oh, the game is over. My father missed the biggest moment of my life because he said, oh, they lost, I'm gonna go get the car and leave to travel. He was headed to the parking lot. My mom was praying, it was Easter Sunday, the hours that she goes to concession stand, she was on her knees with her eyes closed, and she was praying, and she was trying to hit the shot. But it just taught me that it's not over. Like, it's not over until the horn goes off, right? And so how that translates to my life today, and Charlotte knows this, but so I have a clothing line, and when the pandemic hit, I thought, oh my gosh, this is a terrible time to have a clothing line. And so I started making masks. And so it would be like 4:30, right? I was 15 minutes from the airport, from the post office. And my mom would say, I think we need to just stop making masks. Hey, take these masks to the post office and you get them there on time. I'm like, Mom, are you crazy? 7 tenths of a second on the clock. I can make 10 more masks. I'm flying to the post office. I come back, she's like, did you make it? I said, Mom, I'm a national champion. What are you talking about? But we're champions for life because we learned that, first of all, we learned commitment. Like, we couldn't hide, we couldn't quit, we couldn't get away from it. We had to just deal with it and face it, right? We learned loyalty. We learned how to work together. We learned about leadership. We learned that leadership bridges the gap, right? And so I don't know if you guys noticed, just here tonight, we had half our team over there, we had half our team over here. And we had, and then Carrie was sitting by herself back there. And all of a sudden, this table over here moved over here, right? Because that's what we did. We would go to a restaurant, and you may have upperclassmen right here, underclassmen right here. If I was an upperclassman, I would go sit with the underclassmen. If we went to a restaurant and the white girls were here and the black girls were here, I would go sit with the white girls. If we went and the staff was all over there and the players were all down here, I would go sit with the staff. And then it wasn't just me. People would just kind of recognize what was going on and would bridge the gap, and that's what leadership does. And we understood that games were won in the locker room. So we had to control the locker room conversations. And we had to echo the coaches. So it wasn't just the coaches saying, you gotta box out. We're like, no, coach is right. We gotta box out, starting with myself, you know? So all of those little intangible things in terms of communication, in terms of loyalty, in terms of never giving up, have translated to all of our lives even to this day.
I think the biggest thing that I learned from the national championship game is the importance of doing it afraid. You know, a lot of people look at that moment and they say, oh my gosh, you had ice water in your veins. No, I didn't. I was scared, I was doubtful, I felt inadequate. You know, so in life, you have to learn to do things afraid, to look fear in the face and say that you don't own me. Like 30 years ago, I probably would never even want to do this, speaking in front of people, because I had a fear of speaking in front of people. So the biggest thing that taught me was to just be courageous, and that God is not giving us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind, and just trying to teach yourself how to get to a space of having a sound mind, even when you're afraid.
How do you and your staff today work to prepare your current players for success after Carolina, whether it's the WNBA, whether it's staying in basketball, or a successful career outside of sports?
That's a hard question. It's loaded, right? How do we prepare them for their best self, right, and what that's going to look like? I mean, Charlotte can answer as well because she's in the trenches in the same way. I think most of all we meet them where they are. It's amazing to me how, kind of what you said, everyone speaks a different language. They all come from very different backgrounds. I think they're afraid of different things, or they're inspired by different things. And so I think our staff does a really good job collectively just meeting them where they are, and walking with them as they move through their journey and their process. A lot of honesty, a lot of real conversation, but I think that's probably, you know, no one wants to do this alone. We say that in the recruiting process too, like, you're never going to be alone, we're going to be right here with you. I think we do a good job.
Other than that day in Richmond, favorite moment from your Carolina career?
I think when we beat Virginia. So our record was 33-2. And the 2 games we lost was to one team, which was Virginia. And they were really, really good at that time. And so they beat us pretty bad the first time. And then the next time we played them, Coach Hatcher said, it's hard to beat the team 2 times. And they beat us And then we met up with them in the ACC championship, right? And so, and then Coach Carter said, it's hard to beat a team 3 times. That's what he said the last time. But Before that game, I'll never forget this as long as I live. Coach Hatcher says the pregame speech of her life, and everybody runs out the locker room for the warm-ups. And I was a captain, so I was in charge of counting the heads to see if we had everybody, right? And make sure no one's in the bathroom, and we ran out together. And so I'm counting heads, and I'm missing one, and it's Mary. I'm like, where's Mary, where's Mary? And she's my little sister. We have a big sister, little sister program. And I was responsible for her being where she needed to be as a freshman. So I'm like, Mary, where are you at? And Mary was sitting in the locker, where her locker was. And I said, and I sat by her and I said, Mary, are you okay? Are you sick? Like, you can't be sick today. We got Virginia, you know? And she said, I just want to win. And a tear came down her face. And I thought, oh my gosh, she wants to win so bad. It hurt, like it's hurting her. And I sat beside her, and a tear rolled down my face. And I think it was Charlotte. Somebody came in to find us, like, what are y'all doing? And I was like, we just want to win. And we sat there and had a moment, right? And then finally we just started busting out laughing. We ran out of the locker room, and we warmed up. And in those warm-ups, we were in a zone, the whole team. I've never experienced this ever in my life. Like, there's times where maybe Charlotte was in a zone, or maybe Samson was in a zone, or maybe I felt like I was in my fake zone. But at this time, our whole team was in a zone. In the warm-ups, I'm talking, we were making every shot. All violent shots were going in. And then we felt like, oh my goodness, we got to save our zone for the game. Like, no, we're so zone in the warm-up. But I could tell from the warm-ups that we were going to beat Virginia. And we ended up beating them. We were ACC champs, and I knew then that no one was going to stop us from there. And we knew from that game that we would be national champions.
I think one of my favorite memories was when Tanya Sampson, I don't remember what game it was, she dribbled over, you remember she dribbled over a human in the game. She was like 5'2", and like she literally dribbled over it. She made this crazy awesome move. But that was like one of the memories that stood out in my mind. I just really appreciate Tanya and what she brought to that team, because she was like a beast. I mean, strong, powerful, and intimidator. People didn't want nothing to do with Tanya. My hat's off to Tanya Cooper, who had to guard her every day in practice. But just tough and relentless, a tough and relentless player.
One of the things that stands out to me is we were a praying team, and so we prayed before every game and we prayed after every game, and we gave thanks regardless of what the outcome was. And it just, everybody kind of comes from different faith backgrounds, but it just gave us a moment to kind of quiet ourselves and center ourselves and focus on what needed to get done, and then when it was done, to give thanks for the opportunity, because sometimes we forget what a privilege it is to get to play.
But what advice would you give today's current players to prepare them for success in their current college basketball pursuits and then life afterwards?
I was definitely a role player. Even though I had the opportunity to be a captain, I always joke that it was because I wrote really good thank you notes and I picked good restaurants except for Cracker Barrel. And I checked bedtimes, where I would greet them wherever they were and walk them back into their sleep situation. But I think the advice I would give is to know your role and play it to the very best of your ability, because that's going to carry through in life. Every summer, every year I go into Coach Hatchell's office after the season and be like, Charlotte and Sylvia, I'm coming for them. I'm going to start as their next year. I'm going to work out like a beast all summer, and I'm just going to come back and just crush it. You're not going to be able to not start. So I did play in every game of my career, but I very strongly backed the these two ladies up. And proudly, I mean, like, when they're like, oh, you started in front of you? Oh, you know, Charlotte's been Sylvia, Crawley. Yeah, I did love a good scream. So I think it's knowing your role, playing your role, having pride in getting to do exactly what you're called to do. Because we don't all have the prettiest voice, we don't all have the best backup dancing moves, you know. You have to play the role and do it to the very best of your ability. That's what you're called to.
I would say major in something that you're actually going to use after school. I mean, that's a big one. You'd be surprised how many athletes don't. And do internships. You know, a lot of us, we play basketball so that we can get our scholarship. And we get our scholarship and we stay at school all year round so that we can be a starter or have a better year or maybe go to the pros. And then in my case, I ended up going to the pros and I played overseas on my off season. So by the time basketball ended, I had no work experience and I had no resume, right? And so it's important for student athletes to actually choose a major that you actually want to get a job in afterwards and do internships so that you don't major in that for 4 years and then realize like, I don't like this, you know? And then the other advice that I would give them is to compete. Like, we had players in every position that competed. I mean, Charlotte alluded a little bit to Tanya Cooper, who had to guard Tanya Sampson, right? But we also had Tony Montgomery in that position. And Tanya Sampson, Tony Montgomery, and Coop, they battled every single day. I'm talking, there was a tooth in the floor, one after one practice, right? Gwendolyn and I, we battled along with Carrie, and we were the centers, right? And that was at every position. You had Charlotte, Maya, and TJ at the 4th position. You had Lori Gear with Stephanie Lawrence, who broke a 3-point record, right? And so at every single position, practice was so hard that if you didn't get a nap before practice, you were not going to survive, right? We had practices where they would be garbage cans in 4 corners, and we were like, you were going to throw up that day, right? And so by the time we played our opponents, it was easy. Like on game day, we were happy. And the warm-up was like, we get to beat up on somebody else today, you know? But we competed at every position. And so the mentality of the non-starters were, if you sleep for 1 second, I'm going to take your spot, right? And it pushed us to be the best that we could be. So when we got out there, we performed, right? And if I didn't perform, I let her down because she challenged me every single day, you know? And if I didn't get it done, I remember there was one game where I didn't rebound well. It started Carrie the next game, and she earned that, you know? And I was there to cheer her on because she earned that moment. And so when you have stuff like that going on your team, you got something special. You have something special because now they're competing. And it wasn't always like that. We were so close that if Gwendolyn fell down, I tried to help her instead of score. Coach Hatch would be like, no, you gotta score, then you help her up, you know? So they started structuring the practices where it was very competitive. And then all of a sudden, there was a loser and a winner for every drill. It could be shell drill. Like, you didn't win shell drill, on the line, you know? So it's like you had to win. And we figured out how to compete against each other, and it pushed us to be the very best against our opponents.
Basketball is what you do, but it's not who you are. You're bigger than basketball, even bigger than academics. You're not a GPA. And realizing and understanding that you have value beyond the classroom, you have value beyond basketball. Because I think a lot of times, I see it all the time, just an identity crisis, and feeling like it's the end of the world because something went wrong in my basketball career. It's the end of the world because I didn't get a 4.0. So just, I guess from the Lion King, when you're staring in the water, remember who you are. That's what I would say.
While you got the mic down there, Charlotte, since you are in the trenches, as Courtney said, as a head coach, 13 years now at Alumni, after such a successful playing career, how have you seen the sport change and grow these last 30 years?
Change. I like it how it was. When you play for the love of the game, and it wasn't so convoluted with so many different things. I mean, I would go back and do it over for just the scholarship. So I miss that piece of it. It's like the true, genuine genuine love for being a student athlete. But then on the flip side, I do understand the other dynamics of it, because there were times where I didn't have laundry money to wash my clothes, so I get the other piece of it. And the growth of the game, the technology, stronger, bigger, faster. I mean, women's basketball is at an all-time high in terms of excitement. So just excited to see where we've come from and where we're headed.
Why is it so important for alums to stay connected with this program to help the Tar Heels win that next national championship?
I think being able to invest and see that return on investment, and I am guilty of not investing. I think I use the excuse of I live in Colorado and it's kind of a different world, but I absolutely believe in investing in the next generation. And there were people who reached out to me when I played at Carolina and invested in me, whether that was upperclassmen or folks who went to and played at Carolina years before me and spoke of the pride that goes with having the privilege to play at Carolina. And so I think that's part of why it's so important to stay connected with the program and with the players whenever possible.
I think for me, I'd like for, Icy, can you wave one of my assistants, Natora Coleman, Sean Sullivan, Joanne, Luca White, Dan, back there, right? Not necessarily because it matters who we are, it matters that we're now responsible, right, for the program that is Carolina, right? And so for me, I feel like my role is as overvalued as their role is undervalued, right? Just like the tough roles here on the outside world. But those of us who are inside it know that I think what makes it so important is that we talk about being a part of something bigger than yourselves. That's how we inspire and mentor. And for you guys to show up and give back and care and support and celebrate and cheer, and you're just living proof of that, right? We tell our kids all the time, like, what you're doing matters and who you're becoming matters. And you guys, what you've done and what you continue to do as alums now, it's just a living proof of it, for manifestation of it. So I think I want to make sure that you all know that the staff who's currently in charge of it, or what we're trying to do is make sure that we are giving you your next group of alums that will continue this thing that's pretty magical.
I think it's important. You see the '94 championship team, but we stand on the shoulders of giants, and they're in this room. There are women who played in the '70s and in the '80s, and even the ones who were here when I got here in the '90s, early '90s. The history that they passed down to us, the legacy, the records that we chased. I saw Kathy Wilson Dupree's name in our media guide for years. I never knew who she was, but I knew her name and I knew how many rebounds she averaged, and I aspired to beat that record, right? And then I came to an alumni day and I met her face to face, right? And she's my sister to this day. And so we were able to win a championship because of all the people who paved the way before us. And so it's important for this generation of players to know who we are, because they stand on the shoulders of all of us, And so I believe that if you don't know history, it can repeat itself, right? And so we hold the stories of why their door is so small to their locker room. And we hold the stories to why they put stickums on their hand, smack hands with each other. Like, there's a lot of things that the players do, and they don't know why they do that, but it's tradition that's carried for years and years. But we hold those stories, right? And so where they're trying to go, where they aspire to be, we walk them out in their shoes. And it's different at Carolina than any other school in the country. It's just different when you've been here. And so you can see other people do things, but you feel like, well, it's Carolina, so it's different. But we've done it, and it's possible to survive it and do it. And so I think that's why it's important for us to continue to come back. We're very organized as an alumni group. Coop 5 is what we call ourselves, and we have a board, we have a committee, we meet monthly, and we pay dues, and we do things so that we can stay connected, so that we can mentor our current players, so that we can be there. And so there's a lot of stuff that we want to do. We're incorporated. We just got trademarked, so we have a lot of things up the pipeline. But we, like you saw before, when everybody up here said what they do for a living, there's opportunities for these players to internship, to shadow us, to even be hired by us. So we want to create this pipeline for our players to have a place to go, have an instant network database to tap into. And so that's important. That's why it's important for us to stay connected to this program.
All of what she said, kind of made me weird. But I will share this story with you really quickly. So we played last night. I have an NC State alum on my staff. One of my good friends, Summer Erb, who I played with in the WNBA, played at NC State, played on their only Final Four team, and they didn't even know each other. I said, girl, this is a legend right here. So that's why it's important for us to stay connected, because it would be shameful that you're in the same space with someone who went to the only Final Four, you went to that program and you don't even know each other. So that's why that connection is important.